Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2, with the greatest player of all time, the Protoss in the red, the finisher. It's Serral, up against the Zerg in the blue, D-Mawa, Showtime, the wall. A best of 5 Zerg versus Protoss showdown from Team Basilisk Big Brain Bouts, where every Friday night on Roddy's channel, the smartest players show up to make the smartest plays, which obviously explains why Serral has switched to Protoss. Or they agreed to switch races for the first match of the series in order to show some good games for the fans. Either way, if you enjoy good games for the fans, it'd be awesome if you could like this video and maybe even subscribe. And Jimmy, what are we at? I know. 1,446 likes on this video on this cast. Now I'll cast another one. And now that Serral's back, I'll probably almost certainly do it anyways. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. Serral starting things off with the obligatory probe scout, not able to deny the natchery out of Showtime. He will get his third, and focused on the macro, chrono boosting those probes early. Adding on a stalker to inconvenience the Overlord into going to its pervert pillar. No Stargate yet, but a second gate already begun. 2 more gates as well. Serral looking to put on a little bit of early pressure, and it's not like he's been entirely silent lately. As you know, and well, almost certainly know, he did still participate in the World Cup and some high-profile tournaments like the Team League, but he's completed his obligatory military service in Finland. I'm not sure the exact details, but I know he's back to some full-time StarCraft 2. And after this game, well, he'll be back to his more regular Zerg programming as well. Honestly, I'm not sure how much off-racing Showtime has done, though most players, especially nowadays, are dabbling in a bit of variety. It still is, and obviously any of these players can still be a very high level, no matter what race they've decided on. Despite what the YouTube comments might say, I'm sure they're going to be entirely positive and heartwarming, as always. But an Oracle to start things off. Those 3 gates opening up. Serral adding on some Adepts. Maybe wants to put a bit of pressure on with the early Oracles and add the Adepts in for some special flavor in order to make sure the Zerg can't expand too far too fast. I mean, who knows better? Yeah, the Shady Bunch coming together. He knows the Overlord is there. So make no mistake, this is intentional to bait Showtime. Showtime has 40 drones, which is, it's a bit brain-bending to commentate all this. Reminds me of the Clem versus Raynor match. But a whole bunch of Adepts are headed across. The Roach Warren ain't done yet. Queen's coming up. Will strongly disagree. Finally, time to get some revenge for all the wrongs Serral has wrought upon them in the many years of his career. But there's no... Oh no, he forgot Spore 20! And 4 drones already dead! The Queen... Susan! How do you forget the spores? I don't... Shut up, Brenda. 10 drones dead to a single Oracle that slides away. Serral with the most successful Oracle that I've seen from any Protoss player in weeks. And, well, this is an economic disaster for Showtime, as the Queens are going to take the soul stroll. I think an Overlord died. We saw the shadow of it there. Now, all he has to do is hold the line, as the Queens, not the quickest creatures, in fact, they may be the slowest creatures in the game. Here come the Roaches, here come the Langs. Showtime's got 1 shot. He's got 1 opportunity. Will he capture it here, or more likely, it seems, let it slip solidly out of his fingers? Serral slapping down cannons and shield batteries. He knows that this is all there is. Okay, he's not building any probes. He's getting blink. The Queens are here. They don't have transfuse. The Oracle's wander. Red down goes 1. And, well, concussive, not concussive, corrosive bile. Shield battery overcharges here. Serral only has 3 gates to work with. He's making a void right now. He can't transfuse any of those Queens. Shield battery overcharge will top everything up. More batteries on the way. More cannons coming online. A void ray in production. But Serral is looking to hold the tide here on Oceanborn and prove that the Protoss can deal with the undercurrent of Zerg. Down, even microing back the sentry. Trying to get some of this. Oracle topped up by the shield battery. Corrosive Bouts scattered throughout, but Blank's not even done yet, and Showtime's army is just thinning out dramatically now. It looks like Serral will return to his StarCraft 2 career with 100% win rate as Protoss. Well, these sort of pushes are always, they're a bit slow moving. It's like not an avalanche, a glacier of Zerg. Is sometimes they make their way through and start doing so much damage the Protoss can't recover, but this has gone on long enough that an overcharge came off cooldown again. Blink is completed. He's perfectly capable of pulling the probes, sidesteps the corrosive bile, and GG! Serral claims game 1 as Protoss. The lack of a spore crawler, all the details are important in that early game Zerg defense, and Showtime missing out on him. So, Serral starts things off with a comfortable, almost a free win as Protoss, enjoying that latter sort of experience. But now we're going to exit the fever dream and enter into something a bit more standard, as Serral now has a 1-game lead via that Protoss victory over Showtime Zerg. But now we're back to sanity, snapping back to reality, and we have Showtime as Protoss in the blue and Serral as Zerg in the red, representing his team Basilisk in this Basilisk Big Brain Bouts. Well, that shows how important those basic details are. As we chrono boost through the early game, take a look at the builds. And by the way, we've started doing this a little more lately. To break the fourth wall as Showtime builds his. Very simply, YouTube has shown that sitting through the early game, where the builds are admittedly very similar, is not the best way to keep the less dedicated viewers watching. So I like to find a happy balance that some might argue SC2 itself doesn't have, by showing the early game, but, you know, time warping it a bit so we get to the action a little bit quicker as well. Let me know what you think. We've been doing it for maybe a week now. But the Overlord, Showtime with the dubious architectural philosophy of putting a pylon in the wall. I've made my thoughts on this known. And by that I mean I don't like it. It always feels so vulnerable. You get to wall off a little bit quicker. I'm sure Roddy has his own thoughts on it as a Protoss player. I know he prefers that sort. Maybe not prefers, but is more enthusiastic about the benefits of it. You're able to wall off quickly. You have just that single choke point with a gateway and a cyber core. But to me, it seems like more of a vulnerability. Maybe you're even baiting the Zerg into some sort of early aggression. But Protoss can very easily crumble to early aggression from Zerg if they're not prepared, just like Zergs can crumble if they're not prepared for even a single Oracle. So I do wonder, because Serral delayed his Stargate just a bit, I wonder if Showtime, once again, I'm not sure how much off-race Zerg he plays, but because the Oracle was a bit delayed, it actually was more effective than if it was rushed out. Just didn't build the spores because he expected to see it so much earlier. I kind of doubt it. Sometimes you just forget those sort of things if you haven't played Zerg 8 hours a day for ever, so. But now we've already got the Queen standing guard in the maid. Serral, it would be quite embarrassing if the same thing happened to him several minutes later, so already has that spore crawler on point. Now, Chrono Boosted Oracle. Now, he has the Overlord in position to spot all this, of course. I do wonder, there have been some, I don't know if we'll call them revolutions in the metagame, especially not in ZVP, but with Rogue reasserting himself in Zerg versus Terran, the matchup that Serral very notably struggled with in the World Cup against Clem. Mostly just Clem, but still. I wonder if Serral will adapt his strategies like a true Zerg, if he's going to incorporate anything that we've seen from some other players, maybe improve upon it, or just refine the kind of... It's hard to tell how much of Serral's strategy is standard because he is the standard. You're trying to compare against itself. The Oracle's coming. But Zerg versus Protoss has not shifted too much in the last 6-8 months. Not nearly as much as Zerg versus Terran, I'd say. There hasn't been a balance patch since very early this year. So, at the current state, I think, well, it really depends on the late game. Oh, wow. Protoss players have gotten very good at dragging things out to this Immortal Archon and maybe even Fleet Beacon stage that only a handful of Zergs can comfortably deal with. I don't know if comfortable is even the right word, but dealing with that incredibly powerful kind of Chad Toss army is, even with mass Lurker to combat it, it's a struggle. And now Showtime is working towards it. He's got the Templar Archives, he's got Charge, he's got +1. He has skipped Blink to go Charge, so he's clearly intent on battling it out on the ground. The Blink Stalkers dance around, and they poke and prod and shave off. Maybe you could do a big timing and get a killing blow, but the Charge lots and Archons are much more forward sort of strategy. The question will be how committed he is to this attack and how much he's looking towards the next one. Because Showtime is still building more probes. He's building 4 more gateways. Now, Serral has road speed on the way. This Overlord, more like Noverlord. Please clap. And like and subscribe. Spore Crawler's moving into position. The Queens, couple Queens, will not be enough to deny the Archons, but Serral kind of baiting in. He's got the Roaches here as well. The Oracles, revenge! Okay, Susan. They killed Brenda. No, I'm Brenda. That was Karen. Well, that's probably fine then. Think it. Don't say it. That's rude. Well, okay, fine. Sorry. The Queen's getting surrounded and killed, but so are the Archons. One ripped apart by Zerglings, of all things. That which they're supposed to counter. The charge lot's being dealt with, and Serral, just like that, a 40 supply. What do we got in the main? Stasis actually caught a chunk of the drones, and Serral had only 69 drones, which is nice enough if they're all mining, but right now, that income gonna go, well, it looks dramatic, but you see the difference is only about 300-400 resources a minute, so that's just a few workers either way. The Queens, 7 swarm hosts on the way, as Serral calls Sir Richard and his band of brethren. No longer an accidental strategy, but a relatively common one. The swarm hosts are not the scourge, literally or figuratively, that they once were in Heart of the Swarm Host, but instead much more of a timing-oriented unit. Use it or very much lose it is the motto of the Swarm Host. You have to be on top of those cooldowns. Making sure the locusts are effective, because Swarm Hosts at 3 supply each take up a big chunk of your potential army, and you only have the locusts for about a third. Their uptime is only about a third of the time. So how you use it and when you use it is very, very much important. Otherwise, you waste a wave and the Protoss army might just roll over you. Especially if you're looking the other way. The Observer spotted the Swarm Host, so the best defense is certainly a good offense here. As Showtime moves in, he's got force fields. Ravager's caught on the wrong side of him. He's going to lose a whole bunch. Here comes a wave of the Locusts. But Showtime is not only drawing the army back, but he's covering for his 4th base here. He may lose an Archon or 2. If he ends up losing too many Immortals, well, that's problematic. But Serral was forced to use a Locust Wave defensively. He'll get a sentry or 2, but the charge lots are warped in. And while Serral's army supply may be ahead by about 50 right now, the Swarm Hosts take up a big chunk of it. And that means Showtime was able to buy himself the space to get that 4th base up relatively cleanly. But the Swarm Hosts are still lurking. Unlike Lurkers, which are currently not even close to production, there's no hive on the way. Serral's maxed out still. He was forced to waste the Locust Wave back at home on defense. That doesn't mean he took any real economic damage. He's at only 66 drones, which is perfectly fine if he keeps getting such value. The Archons will clean up most of the Locusts. The Immortal count is so damn high as he juggles back 1, just annihilating Roaches as they get anywhere close. More charge lots warped in. He shouldn't be able to really get any damage on the Nexus. Maybe some force fields. Charge lots. Whoop. Warp Prism, I think, take it out of the main. Something happened in the main. Oh, it's the Oracle. More charge lots in the fourth base, though. Serral at the run. Both players knocked down to 66 workers. Swarmhost still waiting for their moment. The charge lots will be dealt with, but with +2 weapons, they're not bad against the roaches themselves, though obviously it's a numbers game. The Archon surrounded by the Locusts as they swoop down. And an Immortal Archon still gonna hold. He's got the Warp Prism in position. There's so many Immortals. 8 Immortals right now. And Serral, he's scattering the Corrosive Bow. Showtime dipping heavily in supply, but that is a heavy 67 army supply right now. His army is almost exclusively Immortals, with a few Archons in the mix and a couple Sentries, mostly for Guardian Shield. And Serral still does not have a Hive on the way for Vipers. He still doesn't have a Hydra Den for Lurkers. He's reliant on wave after wave of Locusts getting the damage done, but so far, the wall has held. But it will be tested most greatly by this drop. Juggles back in Archon, and with the shield battery overcharge, he took almost no losses. They've been fought. He lost 4 Zealots. He hasn't lost a single Immortal or Archon in this engagement. And now he's going to chase down Serral's Roaches and Ravagers. +3 ground weapons is closing in, right alongside +2 missile attacks for Serral. But a couple charge lots will harass the Swarm Hosts, as they have nothing to protect themselves at this point. He needs some Roaches and Ravagers, and he truly does not want to waste a Locust Wave on dealing with a few charge lots. Yeah, Banelings come in, but oh my god, a dozen Immortals just blasting through! And just, the Banelings are rolling through, but they evaporate almost instantaneously. And Showtime is pounding the point home right now. The Zealots slice through a Queen. The Locusts just desperately running back. But Showtime is pinning Serral in his base, and he shows why it's time to respect his Protoss. 1-1. We're all tied up. Showtime with a solid performance. He turns a 50 supply deficit into a lead just like that. And Serral, when they revert to their... So far, Protoss, undefeated in this series. That's the quick summary of things. But a very solid performance from Showtime. Really focusing on maintaining the core of that army. Not sending like 60 Zealot. Okay, let's not be ridiculous. That's a bit of hyper. Not sending like 16 Zealots at a time out. But instead, just a few here and there to keep him busy. Attacking when his opponent is potentially weak or out of position. And defending when he has the tools to do so. I want to point out the Warp Prism that he was using for Micro. A classic tactic, but one that is... It's very apparent when it's not there, but it seems almost standard when it is. If you don't have that Warp Prism to drag Immortals and Archons, which are notably unwieldy. That's a nice way to put it. If you don't have those Immortals and Archons, and the ability to remaneuver them, especially against Swarm Hosts, it can get very difficult very quickly. Those are they're so expensive. 100, 300 for your run-of-the-mill High Templar flavored Archon. 275 and 100 for the Immortals. So you're at the cost of like 5 Roaches a piece, maybe more depending on how you value Vespene gas for each of those units. Despite them only taking 4 supply, they are worth 10 or 15 Zerg supply, depending on, once again, how you measure it. And once they build up to that critical mass, you need Lurkers, you need Vipers, you need this late game. Roach, Ravager, Swarm Host just does not get the job done. And that's why we're all tied up. 1-1, going into Ghost River. Showtime, opting for the Stargate. And a Stalker on the way. Right behind it. Just going to deny any Overlords if possible. Serral's already moving back. I see that as kind of testing the waters a bit. I don't think Swarm Hosts are going to be the staple from Serral, but throw it out there, see if it sticks. I'm sure he's been, like, let's make no mistake. He hasn't been, sitting, he hasn't had no access to the internet. From what I understand, he kind of bought his own practice space, for downtime. And he was allowed to practice for at least several weeks before the World Cup. Instead of, having a full-time, like, training schedule. So, it's not like he's just coming back after a couple tournaments and not practicing. But instead, I think we're back to that normal level. And even though you could say, well, he was still practicing, he was still playing. When you're mentally split, it's been many, many years, though I still get nightmares of being back in school. You ever get the, oh my god, I missed my final kind of nightmare? Despite it being almost half your life ago or more? Yeah. I did miss my final, though, in one of... I think I was playing StarCraft all night, and I also just got the day wrong. But don't worry, it didn't end up mattering, because now I just play StarCraft all day. That's not the point. When your attention and you're mentally split like that, it's almost impossible to focus. So it doesn't really matter exactly how many hours you get in if you're not able to mentally. I feel like of all the people in the game, though, Serral is the one who could not play for weeks and still come up with new ideas or new refinements, because so much of it is just played in his head, where he lives rent-free in almost everyone else's. You got the idea. Glaive Adepts. Roachhorn is on the way. 50 Shades with Glaives is the strategy for Showtime. Throwing that in there, a classic strategy pulled out of the Protoss deck of cheese. And it is a cheese. A cheese is a strategy that becomes significantly less effective once you know it's coming. It could be an all-in, maybe not. If it gets scouted, it's almost certainly all-in. But the later that Serral sees this, the more difficult it will be to defend. But the Zerglings spotted the sheer amount of adepts, and he's hard-walling off with evolution chambers. Glaives are done. The Queen's gonna take the brunt of this. But he's trying to get through. He's now... Wait, the drones were pulling away. There's actually no Spore Crawler in position here, which means the Oracle gonna find a lot of damage. But Serral, for the most part, has managed to mitigate the losses. He's only 3 drones. 5 Adepts dead. Finds an angle. Gonna be able to burn through some more of the drones. The Adepts getting into the third base. Serral a little slow on moving the roaches. Now working on the 4th hatchery. But overall, Serral deflecting most of this. And it is quite difficult to transition from the Mass Adept into a more long-term Protoss army, because the Adepts cost a bit of gas, and you do require the Twilight Council in order to upgrade the Resonating Glaives. So, now Serral, in deflecting this, may have a timing with those early roach speed, the relatively early roach speed, and any amount of Zerglings he wants to put on the field. Though Showtime, not missing a beat on the macro side of things. He took his 3rd base. He's been producing probes. And how many gateways? Only 4? Wow, this is a show of an attack here. He doesn't have the... Only 4. He does not have the production to really back this up. But he's trying to bait enough out of Serral to kind of maintain some economic parity. And Serral did go to 70 drones. He did go to a 4th base. And he doesn't have that many roaches and lings on the field. So this is a real threat, at least for now. But Showtime has to be so careful, because if this gets crushed, he's not going to have enough production to deal with the counter swing. There's a stasis ward in there. Not sure if Serral spotted it. Some more Glaive Adepts trying to shade their way through. Quite a threat. Roach speed is done, though. More Zerglings on the way. That stasis sitting on the edge of the creep, obviously. Oh, does he have a gateway at the front? Building another pylon. It appears Showtime wants to continue down this road. The stasis catches a lot of lings and actually creates the most dangerous force field that Showtime could hope for. Another stasis to retreat to. Very important, Serral has vision of the natural. There's only one gas. He has vision of the 4th. There's no more nexus. There's not another nexus on the way. So he knows he just needs to produce units, which means he's got a nice economy. He's got plenty of drones. He's got upgrades on the way, but no more drones in production, and he's incrementing out Hydralisks. Hydra's a much better option against the mostly Blink Stalker composition. There's not going to be charge on the way. 7 drones died to Adepts. So that, well, and Serral replaces exactly 7 drones, so not being too stingy there. The rocks creating a bit of a choke point. Showtime angling for a 4th base, and Serral clearly aware of it. Gonna try to take out the reinforcing pylon. Some Adepts are warped in to defend it. Good presence of mind there. But more Zerglings come across. The Blink Stalkers trying to break in, but the biomass is starting to get quite dramatic. Serral has plenty of Roach Hydra and some Ravagers mixed in, which makes it extra difficult to find a favorable engagement. The Lurker down the Hive on the way. And Showtime is much later on progressing his tech. He has a lot of supply, but it's just in gateway units. Robo Bay is on the way, but Serral has not really slowed down his tech much at all. He's managed to defend comfortably while still moving up the tech tree. And the Hydra count is getting so high that the Stalkers are having a tough time getting anywhere close, at least on the creep. This little outpost in the center, protected by its own little forward guard of Zealots and Adepts. There's enough Roachling to deal with any sort of Adept run-bys or shade-bys, assuming not everyone gets in the way, so this is a bit dicey. Gonna lose several more drones here. Bit of an awkward fight, but Serral replaces exactly 5 drones, somehow keeping exact count of it. He knows what he wants, and what he wants is 69 drones exactly. You know, that's easy enough to remember. And now feeling confident enough to come down both sides. The Roach Hydra count, he's maxed out. He sent the anti-shade army towards the center and clears out the reinforcements. A recall of some of these Stalkers to the natural will prevent the run-by. But Serral now on the attack. There are 2 Colossi in production, but Serral's working on Lurker range. Hydra's coming down the Stalkers in the midfield. Plus 2 ground weapons. Showtime. He was able to make a tactical withdrawal as opposed to a full retreat, which gives him some wiggle room here on how he wants to progress further. But the Colossi, for now, we should see Vipers in production the moment he sees this. All right, Serral's at 193 supply. Let's see him, Serral. There we go. Just yank him out. Templar Archives on the way, maybe feedback to cover. More Lurkers in production. And Serral working on his 5th base. There was an attempt at an additional proxy gate, but Serral shut it down. He needs to clear out that pylon, though. No adrenal glands yet for his Zerglings, but they're definitely not the main focus of this army. The Warp Prism! Oh, no! Oh, no! Serral in position preemptively to shut that down. I don't know if he spotted it or just anticipated it. But the Warp Prism, the only real threat to this army right now, because that's the only way to break up the sort of Zerg death ball he's put together. And it's going to be nearly impossible for just Stalkers and Colossi to fight against ranged Lurkers and Vipers. There's just not an answer there. Now, 3 or 4 Lurkers, not too bad. All 10 Lurkers and Vipers, well, that certainly is a lot more difficult to deal with. Especially now that Serral's doing the same sort of thing. He's hitting... Now, there's some Zealots warping in, but now Showtime is giving up the map. Oh, no. This is very problematic. He's got a small counterattack. There are a couple Disruptors in position, but the Lurkers underneath, is there even detection? He's moving forward with the Observers. Disruptor shot will core out 2 of the Lurkers. Unfortunately, there's 5 more where that came from. And the Vipers with this as well. 11 probes dead. The Robo's under attack. The wall has been torn down, and the wall must move to defend. The Stalker counter might be able to pick off this hatchery, but more Zerglings, more Hydras, and more Queens coming down to defend. Yanks out one of the Disruptors, minimizing the damage. Another Ruptor gets a hit. The observers are with this, but the lurkers are doing a lot of damage. Serral's in the natural. He's killed 20 probes, but he hasn't killed any of the Nexi. 8 more gates are on the way. At the moment that Showtime lost so many probes, he can't really afford it. A very sad recall of Stalkers. And when everything's said and done, at least for now, Serral has a 50 supply lead. He maintains 5 more workers, but they have an equal amount of basic. Serral was still building his +3 weapons, missile attacks. He's building 4 more queens. I love that attention to the monarchy here. He's going to go up to 10. You have extra minerals, but not gas. Queens are a perfectly solid option. And Serral, that's it. Really, it's the glue of the Zerg. It ties it all together and gets a little sticky. You know it. Adrenal glands on the way. Even Serral a little prey to forgetting it for quite a time, but the Zerglings. Oh my god. He dodges the Ruptor, then surrounds it with the Lings. And Showtime on full defense. And he doesn't have anything more. Oh, he forgot extended thermal lance. His wall is not so much that description as the Zerglings trickle through. And Serral has reconsolidated. They both went back to their quarters, but Serral had a lot more to work with. And now there are 12 lurkers and counting. He's got that 1 Viper, but sometimes all it takes is 1. He's got +3 missile attacks and +2 carapace. Showtime is going to have to... he's going to have to live up to his name with a near-perfect defense to have a chance against this. And a chance is certainly not a guarantee. The Archon count is so damn high, but against lurkers, 17 lurkers. Those Archons are going to have to get very close. And lurkers are very good at making sure that doesn't happen. Zergling's just going through the gate as the Zealots warping around him. He will finish it off. More lurkers in behind the mineral line, slightly out of cannon range. Disruptor either yanked out. No, not even pulled out. That Viper's still at full energy. 1 Templar deals with the Viper. The best possible result. Lurker gets a few more probes, but now Serral's jammed in between the natural and the third yet again. The line of lurkers. Well, he's gonna pull back the front line. Draw the Archons in, and he just has to engage it straight up and straight on. Are there enough Archons for this? They're getting shredded. Having a real tough time dealing with all the lurkers at once. Showtime works around the edges, but there's still a dozen lurkers. The Zerglings broke through the defenses. And now 100 supply lead for the finisher. It's far too much. Serral will rip this one away. He's able to make it. Oh, that's sad. Okay. Well, I guess a little credit to Showtime and not just tapping out, but 3, 2, 1. GG. Serral strikes back 2-1 and ends Protoss' undefeated streak after 2 games. And a very solid execution in every sense of the word, as Serral deflects the Glaive to Depths, counterattacks with the Roach Hydra, and progresses to lurkers before Showtime really has an opportunity to even recover. And that puts him on match point. Doesn't seem like he's missed too many beats with his return. As we go to Alcyone. Early probe to deny the Natchery. The drone probably already, it's already just sent to the third, as is customary nowadays. And for many, many days, you only get, you get 2 choices. Their natural or your third. This map, occasionally you'll get the gold base as well, but probe to do some mineral flirting. Early gate. Spawning pool and some gas on the way, so Serral right down the center. Of course, he is the macro standard, so whatever Serral does becomes the standard. Showtime with another one of those questionable setups. I'll allow it. I mean, I have no control over it, but I can always voice my disapproval, and I've never been shy to do so. Stargate. We'll see what the follow-up ends up being. That's usually where the action is. Feel like we're getting kind of close to that Brood War. See, I'm not an expert in the originator, the original StarCraft, but to my understanding, I mean, the original StarCraft hasn't had a balance patch since before Clem was born, so the meta shifts based on maps, based on just what players are doing to that time, and it truly feels, partially because balance patches are pretty few and far between. And so are map rotations in StarCraft 2 nowadays. Please, intern. Though, be careful what you wish for, right? That while everything is figured out, the devil is always in the details. And Serral is clearly going for something a little sneakier this time. Sneaks the Zerglings out while the Adepts are halfway across the map and have to scramble back, but that's going to be a cancel on the third base. Only loses 4 lings for it. He gets it when it's pretty far along. So a significant delay on the third. Behind it, Serral building some more drones, and he keeps enough Zerglings alive to be a real threat to the Adepts. So it's not like he's sacrificing his potential defense much. Just great timing. And it pays off. Couple oracles. And the Zerglings. Oh, Twilight and Forge. The Queens! That's optimistic. Did he get... He got 1 drone. Always got to get at least 1 so you don't come home empty-handed. Well, or you don't come home at all, depending on how it goes. Twilight Forge on the way. This seems to be a blink time. He got the 2 gases at his natural quite early on. Yeah, blinking +1. When you get those gases before about the 4.5 minute mark, almost always goes with the Blink Stalkers. Needs a little bit more gas. The startup cost, a bit more of an investment. As Blink, Stalkers themselves, and of course +1 are quite costly. But when you get it out of the way, those are things that if the game goes on long enough, you're going to need to get anyways. So might as well get it out of the way early. But Serral actually didn't scout for that specifically. So I'm not sure. Well, the only 4 Adepts here is a bit of a giveaway that it's not Glaive Adepts. Does he have a Roach Warren? No. Skip the Roach Warren. I think we're going straight to Hydras. Though the Lair will be finishing momentarily. The Hydra Den, which I'm assuming it's Hydras, doesn't have to be Hydras. It's just not Roaches, which leaves almost everything else on the table. Yeah, +1 range. There's the Hydra Den. A much more direct response. This is... It feels like Serral narrowing down. He's locking in on Showtime strategy, and each game getting more and more tailored to directly defend it, no matter what sort of adjustment Showtime makes. So skipping the Roach phase entirely, which when you're not up against the early Adepts is much easier to do. Oracles come in. Serral at 80 drones. Showtime gonna shave a few off that. It's not like he's been slouching either. 70 probes. And, whoop, almost, wait, oh, gotta be careful with that thing. Infestation Pit comes in, gonna get a couple more. Big greedy out of Showtime. Slaps down a Revelation before he gets out of there. And Serral right back up to 80 drones. A passive, potentially final match. as neither player... Well, Serral did his little bit of early aggression, and now is perfectly happy to sit back and defend. There's a 7 minutes on that hive, with 82 drones, a lurker net, and more drones on the way. +1 ranged attack, groovy spines for the Hydras. Should have those. Actually, they can queue up Hydra speed behind. There it is. Storm is on the way for Showtime. So, not slouching. Only one robotics facility. So, can't pump out a redonkulous amount of immortals. In fact, not pumping out any immortals. Serral. And about as perfect a response as you're ever going to get there. Though, a bit of extra mining time lost. And there we are. A fleet beacon is on the way as Showtime rushes up the tech tree for the ultimate response to late game Zerg. But there will be quite a timing where Serral is maxed out with Hive Tech and Lurkers. That's going to be a long way before any carriers or maybe even Tempests come out to defend. So, that window's open. There's been 4 Adepts, 16 Lings. There was that a little bit of back and forth, but Serral feels like we're watching him lock it back in real time. God, 8.5 minutes, 170 supply. Now, you can easily max out before 8 minutes. If you're going roaches, but this is, he has cut no corners, pulled no punches. Well, he hasn't punched at all really yet. Just a backhand across that nexus. This is with the most advanced and well-upgraded army composition you can pretty much get as Zerg. He's sprinted to Hive. He's expanded outwards into Lurkers and Zerglings, and now he's opting for a Nidus, another Stasis diffused. There are Tempests on the way. There are Templar on the ground, but if he's not careful, they will all be temporary. Serral inspired. God. More Tempest. Dropping creep. Showtime not slouching here. Adrenal glands on the way. Alright guys, not no rush 10 minute. Well, effectively is at this point. At the 10-minute mark, we get to fight. Let's go. The bell has rung. Let the big brain bout to begin. More info in the description, by the way. The storms will ward away. But the Nidus, it appears he's noticed, but it's a little late. The Lurkers will pop out. There is a revelation, but more Lurkers popping out. I don't think we're revelated. At least one of them has to come back with the army. But oh my god, that's a lot of charge lots. And we caught the batter end of a whole bunch of Zerglings dying. And this, well, this did not go so well for Serral. He just donated about half a dozen Lurkers. Yep. Still, dragged Showtime back to the natural. He killed a few probes. A mothership is on the way. Greater Spire is in production. 10 Lurkers. Nope, 10 Corruptors on the way to deal with the Tempest and potentially a mothership head-on. Warp Prism is hunting down the Hydra. Hit Squad finds it yet again. And now Showtime will have that late-game army composition. He has the Tempest, he has the Templar. He's got 100 army supply to Serral's 105. Serral will max out at 115. Without a little bit of a maybe Spore Crawler trickery. Spine Crawler's on the way. Lurkers down in the field, but this is that late-game sort of composition. This is where Serral is, historically, at least, been the best in the world. Dealing with late-game armies, whether they be Zerg, or Terran, or Protoss, which is kind of most relevant here. The Lurkers, I've arrived! A single queen in the main. Oh, some more. Hello, ladies. Yes, okay. You were here first. Very cool, Brenda. I don't know. Oh, and the Corruptor is just melting through the gold base. Meanwhile, the Tempest obliterating the queens, but they can take quite a pounding Wow, it takes a surprising amount of Tempest hits to kill queens. They eventually will be whittled down painfully, but they've bought so much space. The lurkers, the corruptors swing in, but are dealt with easily. Gets a couple Tempests on a drive-by there. Well, a flyby, but the main nexus is dead. The lurkers will deny another gold base, and just like that, Showtime's down to 3. The escape Nidus. 13 more corruptors on the way. Showtime has not managed to find any sort of counter damage. There's nothing on Serral's side of the map. A few zealots may be trying to get through. But Showtime is ceding the map to Serral's army, and he's using those Niduses. He only has the single Nidus network, not the overwhelming mass campaign style Nidus that Rogue has shown in the past. But he doesn't need it. He doesn't need to waste that sort of money on it. Serral doesn't have a huge bank, but Showtime is not maxed out. And now the ink. Ooh. 1,800 more resources a minute. Time warp as the mothership is knocked down. The dying time warp, the death rattle of many a mothership in the past, and the Zerglings just slipping through onto the base, gonna kill a lot of the zealots, almost get the Nexus. Another Overseer with the potential for a Nidus in the main. And Showtime is dealing with a fully warmed up Serral here. He still has... Actually, Showtime has more army supply. But he can't seem to bring his army together well enough to attack. Serral is not giving him a target. An Ultralisk Cavern is on the way, which is an interesting development, as Serral has now expanded to a couple extra bases. Storm soften up some of the lurkers, but the Immortals taking the wrong path. And they won't be taking any more. Zerglings in the natural. 6 more probes dead. Gold base denied. Air weapons level 2 completing for the Tempest as Showtime script. There's no wall, though the cannon kind of distracting the Zerglings here. Bringing back more units. The Stalkers blink in to try to close the gap. Gets the battery. Burrow's on the way, so we can't hide those Zerglings for now. But Serral is just all over the place. Everything, everywhere, all the time. Showtime's best bet will be that Death Ball attack. Bring everything together after ideally winning at least one medium-sized fight, and hitting before Serral can bring together an army to crush him. And I think this is about as good as it's ever gonna get. There might be a counterattack, but he can't afford to keep coming back and defending. Serral will take more and more of the map, and Showtime is not gonna make any progress. Some Hydras coming up. There goes the Nexus again, but he can't come back. There's not gonna be anything to come back to. As here we are. The Corruptor count is so damn high. 17 knocks down the Oracle. That was a pretty important one. He's going to be reliant on observers now to deal with lurkers. The spine crawlers, the backbone of the defense. Showtime is supply blocked. Storms splitting against the Corruptors. Trying to force out more storms. The Archons are incredibly helpful as well. Knocks down one Tempest. Showtime at 190 supply and really trying to figure out what to do with it. Looking for another expansion. Serral not able to burrow a Ling in time. He's really trying to bait Serral into that decisive engagement. Trying to bait him into the overwhelming storms. A credit to Showtime that he didn't just YOLO it in. But he's got to be so careful. That warp prism. Oh no, he lost track of the prism. That's a rough pick-off there. He's working around. Serral still has some mining to be done at these outlying bases. The Corruptors, I don't think 2 Stalkers are enough. Well, that's awkward. That base is gone. I don't think he canceled. Serral now. 5K, 2,500 in the bank. The Queens just tanking the hits. Oh, Neural Parasite! You know what counters Tempests? Tempests are pretty good. Meanwhile, the Lurker's in position. The Spore Crawler zoning the Observers. He's got to be careful that he doesn't lose all those Observers before killing the Lurkers. More lurkers come up to defend. The Tempests were whittled down. He's down to 2 of them. He's down to 1 of them. Showtime holding at the back, but Serral seems to be compounding his lead. +2 Carapace about to complete. Do I have more lurkers on the way? Showtime! He can't. Yes. Serral's just drowning him. He's not... He's kind of stopped with the full-on attacks, and he's just annexing the map. He's making sure Showtime does not take any bases, unless he invests far more than the cost of a new Nexus. Another Nidus in the main! Ugh! Just a few lurkers, but enough to make life difficult. There was still enough resources in the main to make this worth it. The floor, 30 lurkers! Oh my. A significant percentage of the ground on the map is lurkers. As Serral cross-hatches the main base. Hey, somebody just scratched the paint on that. Okay. I don't know what Showtime thinks he's chrono boosting in the main. He's going for another Tempest. More Nidus. He's chasing down the army. Both sides supply blocked. Showtime rebuilding some of the gates. And the Corruptor sidestep. He tries to pat it on the back, but the overcharged shield battery re-shielded the Nexus. And then he didn't notice it wasn't... Oh no. That might have made the difference too. Unfortunately, the battery did its job too well and interrupted itself. Showtime keeps coming back to defend. The thing is, the army is still so dangerous. He's made it up to 7 Immortals. He has a very anti-lurker army. The Corruptors find another target. The main base is gone. The Tempests are gonna get taken down by the Corruptors. The Lurkers in a tough position to actually get the damage done here. And he's trying to retreat to his own base, but the storms across the board. The feedbacks are good. He has very little. There's only that one observer. The Immortals are blasting through. It's almost enough. And the GG. 3 Gs for Basilisk Serral. Oh my. As he takes home the Series 3. So I might point out, you might be like, well, that looked close. There are 28 Hydras in production and another 40-something in the bank. It's not particularly close. As oh my god. As Showtime's army value jumps off a cliff. At some point, he staved off disaster for so long. But it wasn't long enough. As the long arm of Serral reached out and smacked him off his pedestal. Yet again, the lurker sliced him away, and Serral very much is back and ready to choke out Protoss, and, well, we'll see about Terrans alike. But I look forward to more. Thank you again to Roddy, twitch.tv/Rotterdamo. You can find it in the description if you know where to find that. That's after liking and subscribing, of course. For putting on the big brain bouts, as well as Team Basilisk for sponsoring Serral and these matches. And I hope you enjoyed. I hope it made your day just a little bit better. If you got the means and motivation, of course. Be awesome to check out Patreon. But liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. Otherwise, what do you think? Should Serral just play more Protoss? Is this the kind of Zerg you want to see? General thoughts on Serral's return? Or, you know, hopefully you had a good day. And hopefully it just got a little bit better. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Stay chill.